Hey guys, welcome back to another Fireside Chat. I'm Chris Reuter. I'm here with Jeremiah Lowen and Chris White.
Hello.
Hey, Reuter.
Nice to be back. So I think we're gonna be here for about half an hour. First, I think announcement. I wanted to announce first discourse. So we created discourse. Shout out to Anna Geller for creating this discourse. This is a great spot for community questions, technical questions, content pieces, etc., to be memorialized. So if you go to discourse.prefect.io, go sign up, say hi. There's a bunch of people in there already. I think we saw a big bump in users over the past week, and we're excited for the rest of the community to get into discourse. So please go discourse.prefect.io. Shout out there. And to kick it off. Oh, quick. Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
Also, Anna wrote a really great blog post on kind of why we set this up, how to think about it, how to potentially, maximize what it has to offer. So definitely encourage people to go check out that blog post as well. Awesome.
Cool. Okay, so first, let's do a little icebreaker, guys. If you're into it. Yeah. No, I know. We're not doing a word count this time. We're gonna do an icebreaker. Correct way to cut a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Oh, we're getting right into the hard questions.
Yeah, this is the hard stuff.
Okay, here's the correct answer. I recently rediscovered peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, making them for my kids. That's too much sugar. It's too sweet for me. Not interested in that. Here's the correct way that I've discovered. It's not a sandwich. It's a sesame bagel. Might be toasted. It's open. It's got really good peanut butter on it. I care less about the peanut butter. It's got peanut butter on it. And then the key is raspberry pomegranate jam that makes the whole thing. And that's a grown-up peanut butter and jelly.
Open face.
Open face.
You're not cutting it at all.
I mean, they cut the bagel in half.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
St. Louis style.
God, no. I'll quit right out of this.
Do you have anything that, anything might be better than that, in my opinion, but.
I definitely have things that are better than that. First off, I highly endorse jam choice is key. Mm-hmm. If I were to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, no cutting of any sort. That just does not make sense to me. Spread it and start eating. I don't eat PB&Js really all that often, though. PB for me is a central part of my morning fruit smoothie. So bananas, raspberries, cherries, strawberries, and a bunch of peanut butter. It's the best way to start the day.
Wow. Two alternate answers. And I wouldn't expect anything less from the two of you guys. Number one. Number two, the correct answer here is diagonally. It's definitely the correct answer for.
No.
You
already screwed up by making it a sandwich. Don't try to cover up.
I think
all right. Yeah, well, that was a great icebreaker. Okay, let's get into the real meat and potatoes of what we're talking about today. So first thing we'll cover in kind of chronological order. First thing, Prefect 1.0 release candidate. So I think we've put this candidate out there. We're going to call it a 1.0 release. I think a lot of open source tools, a lot of companies, from startups to bigger companies, will say, "Wow, 1.0, right? That's a big step." What does a 1.0 release mean to Prefect? And then I'd love to hear, what was like the long tail of things we had to do to make it a 1.0 release? What were like the final stability things that we had to do?
I mean, a 1.0 is something that a long time ago was like, some goal off in the distance. Like, what does that even mean? It's something like extremely aspirational idea that we had. And, it's a good excuse to get all nostalgic and think about, Chris and I locked in this windowless room where we started working, and 1.0 was the last thing on our mind. Versioning was the last thing on our mind. Like, where we didn't know how that was going to work. The only thing we cared about was that people would depend on the software that we were writing, and arguing and debating and designing. And words, many words dedicated to how will people depend on this piece of software, and then finding sort of the minimal version of that to put in code. And now, 4 years later, with an amazing team that has sort of also dedicated themselves to this goal of, we need people to depend on this. And with 2 years now of the current API, more or less, being used in production at some of the largest institutions in the world and some of the most advanced use cases in the world, and a diversity of use cases, by the way, that we couldn't have even begun to imagine back in that inventory closet that we started the company in. That's what it really means to me, is we achieved that mark of this API, battle tested over many years, can be counted on by our users, and has reached like a level of dependability that is appropriate for that production stack.
And that, that 1.0 release, thinking back to you and Chris in the closet, Chris, what was that, taking that leap back then, right? I mean, you meet this guy, Jeremiah, and he convinced you to come work on this project. What was that like?
It was, I mean, first off, it was incredibly fun, I will say. I definitely remember, so, Jeremiah and I had talked for quite a while, a couple of months at this point, whenever, it became a real, Prefect became a real company. So I already knew, we worked like crazy well together. And one of the things too that, most people at Prefect, I think, and you, Reuter, I know specifically know about this, like whenever we disagree, it's fun. It's not like we will get really in the weeds, like, well, you're definitely wrong and something like this. And there was a lot of that in the early days, but in like the most fun possible way. And that's how we just learned so much about where we, saw the product going, what were the crucial features that we wanted to nail in the early days versus ones that we wanted to punt on, etc. But I do remember when Jeremiah first was like, okay, I'm going to meet you at this street corner at this time. It's like, all right, cool. He's like, I've got something of an office set up. Like, okay. So we go into this building and he takes me to the second floor. And I'm not joking. There's like what used to be, I think, a restaurant or something, and it's boarded up. And he's like, we're going to just go through this door. It's like, okay, there's no lights. Takes me down like a dark, long hallway with flickering lights. And I'm like, okay, well, I definitely made a mistake here. And then took me to the back room, and no, it was totally fine. It was genuinely a storage closet tucked away in a building.
That's awesome. I love hearing these stories. And I've told Jeremiah that we're going to do, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And 2 weeks later, I went to California. Unrelated.
That's maybe the more interesting thing, right? As far as it impacted Prefect is 2 weeks into working together, we became a remote company.
Yeah.
Because we had to. And that's when we adopted this idea that we've always had, which is a company becomes remote when there's a single remote employee, not when everyone goes remote. And with Chris as, the constructive forcing function for that, on day 15 of Prefect's working existence, we just embraced a lot of things that have really, survived and blossomed in a big way now as a fully distributed company.
And this
it was tricky at first because everyone was actually in DC for the first like 6 months or so. So it was really just me on a screen hanging out with people.
Yeah. And I think this is quickly turning into a commercial for why you should come work at Prefect. But really a couple, and that's, I think, a really good thing. 2 things too that I do want to highlight as someone relatively new, compared to you guys who've been here for a long time. Number one, you talked about that culture of being able to disagree in a positive way. That's a real thing here, and it's awesome. And then number 2, that remote first culture, which I think is really important, allows us to get access to a deeper talent pool than some other companies, although obviously most of the world is remote first in our industry. Anyways, love walking down memory lane with you guys. I told Jeremiah we'll do an oral history of Prefect at some point. Absolutely. We'll sell it as a book, and that'll be our main revenue stream. But so
3 people will buy it, and they're all right here.
Right. So any final stability stuff, Chris, on that for that 1.0 release? What do we have to do to achieve that technically?
Yeah, so there's a few things on that top of my mind. The team spent, weeks QAing because we did, strip out a lot of the code that we've been telling people is deprecated. So environments, hopefully not many people remember them at this point, but in the very early days, we had this concept of flow environments. Those are officially gone. API token references are gone. So there's all sorts of auth machinery that we had to touch and, wanted to be extremely careful. So we did many, many passes of that. And I think another big thing on my mind that maybe we'll talk about a little bit later is there's kind of the dual side of this is releasing 1.0 is also a claim of stability of the cloud API too, implicitly. We won't be doing much more with the GraphQL API. Totally supported, but you can't expect any breaking changes or anything like that. So this like really seals, that client connected to that API will cease having breaking changes or anything and is completely stable.
Got it. And so 1.0 to me also is kind of like the implication of what's next, right? We achieve 1.0. Everybody here probably knows about Orion. Is Orion Prefect 2.0?
Orion is not Prefect 2.0, but Orion is a major piece of Prefect 2.0. Orion is the engine that will power both Prefect 2.0 and Prefect Cloud 2.0, which is also coming. The reason we started with Orion, the reason Orion is on the website right now, the reason that you can download the alpha of Orion, which, surprise, surprise, is actually identifies itself as a Prefect 2.0 alpha, is because that is the center of everything that we do as a company, is how do we handle the orchestration question? Almost nothing else matters if we get that right. And what I mean by that is everything else we do necessarily should be a feature that expresses our expertise at orchestration. Orchestration defined cleanly as governing the states of code or some process in the world. It's a really, really, really simple definition. Obviously, we have a more robust version of it written down, elsewhere, but that definition is enough to enable this incredible rich feature set as long as we nail that. And the key insight of Orion, of course, async engine that principally moves the orchestration layer from the client to the server. And so now the API is the product, and the API is this rich way of expressing and coordinating with that orchestration engine for any purpose, for observability, for orchestration itself, for any downstream feature set. And so Prefect 2 is the entire framework and set of products that comprise this open source library that includes the API, the engine, the clients, a whole host of things we haven't even announced quite yet. But it's this very rich, full-featured open source platform, of which Orion is the beating heart engine.
Awesome. Yeah, and you had actually mentioned 2.0 in a tweet, and I just wanted us to come out here and say it, that Prefect 2.0 is happening in Orion, really is the core of that. So let's look backward a little bit. Let's look at, I'd be interested to cover, since the last time we chatted on a Fireside chat, what are the latest Orion major releases? And I think there's been quite a few. So Chris, hopefully you can take us through those. Some, I think, like a concurrency runner, DAS support, new filters just came out just the other day. So can we cover those?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who's been watching closely, you should notice our pace of release is starting to pick up. I believe we released 2 or 3 times in the last 10 days. And so we're really starting to hit our stride with being, having that core, those building blocks stabilized so that we can start to build on top of them. And we are, a big thing that is different from the first time that we mentioned this in a Fireside chat is I do believe there is a large percentage of our current user base that could begin using Orion and actually seeing benefits from it. Like, you're not going to go and it shouldn't start just like throwing random errors and things like that. Like, it is in a really good place now for at least some basic scheduling in a local environment. That being said, we did start to introduce Kubernetes support in 2 releases ago in A11. And so if there's a CLI command, it's I think Orion Kubernetes manifest that outputs, it's not templated, it's nothing crazy fancy, but it can get you started deploying this server and an agent to a Kubernetes environment. And we're of course going to keep pushing that further.
Oh,
Did we lose Chris?
We lost Chris.
I think we lost Chris.
Kubernetes run config. Did I just freeze?
Yeah, you did, but you're back.
You're back.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
So Kubernetes flow runner support. This is the thing that replaces the Kubernetes run config and allows you to configure a Kubernetes job for your flow to run in. So just a lot of those very critical path features that people use in current Prefect. But the last thing that I want to mention that is really exciting, or actually there's 2 other things that I want to call out that are also all released. One thing that I'm really excited about, you've heard us say Orion is async first. What that has let us do is build what we call a concurrent task runner. So this is an executor for current Prefect users that allows not quite parallel, right? It's concurrent execution, not parallel execution, but of a flow that has independent tasks. Does not matter. You do not have to have structured it in a certain way. You don't have to think about it. You use the concurrent task runner, you get concurrent execution. And the reason we can do that is because we built the engine async first. So you do not have to use something as heavy as DAS to get some of those really nice speed up benefits. Right now, the concurrent task runner is not the default. but we're going to make it the default. So like you don't have to think about it. You get some really nice execution benefits.
And you don't, sorry to interrupt you. And you don't have to write async tasks to get the benefits of the concurrent task run. You can write completely like synchronous, vanilla Python, and it'll still run this concurrent mode of operation, which is so cool. Yeah,
exactly. And you can even mix and match async tasks with synchronous tasks, I believe. So it gets interesting. So the last thing though, and this is the one I'm personally very excited about, and I think a lot of our users will be very excited. A very popular feature in current Prefect are various forms of concurrency limiting. There's two types that we support in Prefect 1.0. There's concurrency limiting by task tag, and there's concurrency limiting by flow label on agents. As of A10, so already released like 2 weeks ago, we have completely open source concurrency limiting by task tag. So that is out there. Go play with it. It is not a UI first experience at the moment. It's CLI first. So just go explore the CLI docs and you'll find what you need. Very easy to set up. Really cool feature. And I'm really excited that we got to open source it. So it's all out there. And the second thing, this is not released yet, but it will come in a couple of releases, is the ability to concurrency limit. I'm just going to say, without going into details, at the agent level. It works a little differently than that, but let's just say at the agent level, which has been one of the most popular requests for Prefect Server that we didn't do for just a number of technical reasons and supporting different implementations, but it's going to be 100% open source and released in just a couple weeks. So I'm just really excited about both of those.
That's awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I just talk for 1 sec as well about one thing that I'm very excited about is this new filter bar in the UI for a very specific reason. First of all, it's super cool. It's both a builder UI, but also a complete sort of textual interface to defining custom filters for this dashboard. But the reason it's so cool is one of the design goals for this product was, or let me say it differently. One of the things that we did well in Prefect 1 was showing you what had happened in a given execution of a workflow, in a given task, once you got to it. But how do you get there is a problem that gets really complicated when you go beyond a couple of toy cases. Like when you're one of our users who's running multiple flows every second, when you have tens or hundreds of thousands of tasks in the system, millions of tasks in the system for some of our larger users, how do you actually find the thing you're looking for? There's this implicit assumption that you will know where it is, or that you will, that we will detect the error and just show it to you. And what ends up happening is you get this very noisy experience where you're sort of being yelled at a lot by things that are competing for your attention. And so our major goal with this new UI was to invert that and let the user set up their expected world, set up the universe that you expect to see, and then have everything sort of just map onto it nicely. And so this ability to now take the dashboard, create any arbitrary filter set that you want for anything that's interesting to you in your world, the name of the flow. So you might type ETL and get only flows with the name ETL on them. Or maybe that's not the convention your team uses. Maybe you tag them with ETL, but they're named, for whatever their output is. Great. Like maybe you only want to see ones that started in the last 24 hours and failed, or that had, gosh, I don't even know. There's like a million different things that you can combine here to set up this view. But the point is, once you set it up, you save it, and now that's your world. That's the world that you're going to come to, that you've customized, that you're going to introspect. You only want to see scheduled runs of workflows that have your name in them, right? Like whatever it is, set it up. It's the same dashboard. It's the same functionality. And all of a sudden you have this like really rich way of accessing the data. And we'll be continuing to expand that vocabulary that you can use to dive into the data and analyze what's happening in your world. And I think this idea of sort of macro orchestration is increasingly important to us, where, yeah, the low level reporting is very interesting. We need to be good at it. That's the orchestration at our core, but it's sort of worthless if you can't find what you're looking for. And as users are flooding our systems with workflow data, increasingly the ability to search or filter that data is sort of a prime directive of our product.
That definitely, I think that frees you from the chains of when you start thinking about how you're going to structure your workflows. I think having this flexibility in the future that is there, I think just makes it easier when you're getting started.
Chris and I say a lot, the thing that makes the modern data stack actually modern is that you defer decisions. You are invoking APIs in a parameterized way that defers the choices that in a previous version of pretty much the same like ISTA stack, you had to make upfront, and you were locked into, and you structured upfront, you declared upfront. It's like a really terrible way to work in a real world environment where the borders are constantly expanding and the workload is constantly growing. And that's the ethos that we're trying to bring here.
So before we move away from strictly open source offering, license, I saw maybe a commit was made, and we had some questions in the community around what license will Orion / Prefect 2.0 be on. Chris, and this is near and dear to your heart, what's the status?
So I am happy to report that we have in fact made a decision on this front, and Orion will be released under an Apache 2.0 license. So it's out there for any and all use cases.
Wow.
And there are a few community members that I now will get the chance to go ping directly that have been asking me, patiently waiting for that announcement.
That's awesome. This is a high YouTube moment because that's a big deal, I think, for our community for sure. So awesome. Well, that's cool to hear. So then you mentioned Jeremiah, and I want to poke on this, and hopefully you're prepared for it. Our cloud offering for 2.0. So what? And you said it is coming. What kind of expectations can we set around our cloud offering for 2.0?
So I think the most important thing is that our cloud offering will be as familiar to users of Prefect 2.0 as hopefully what we'll call our Prefect Cloud 1.0 offering is to users of our Prefect 1.0 product, in that they work together beautifully. You can offload varying degrees of the API and its management to us. And then of course, there's a variety of sort of managed features that we can put on that, because we can run a whole bunch of stuff while the rest of the world is sleeping. The most important thing I think that we need to share, though, is the lockstep release plan here that Chris is really, really, really hammering and making sure will in fact happen, which is that when, well, Chris, what's your line in the sand here? When we move 2.0 to the public repo, I think is it, right?
Yeah, and so when we move all of our development work into the public repo, Orion or Prefect 2.0 is going to move from alpha to beta status. And at that moment, you can also expect a beta version of our Prefect Cloud API that is compatible with the 2.0 client. Yep. Yeah.
And
then the full 2.0 release then will come in conjunction with that API going out of beta and becoming the Prefect Cloud API. Yeah.
Yeah, and the 2.0 cloud is progressing really quickly. It's a full. It brings everything that Orion makes possible, and it brings it into a cloud context, and it's a wild ride. It's very cool.
That's awesome. So it sounds like basically anchored to that alpha to beta moment is like cloud. That's right. Some availability of cloud 2.0.
And that
exactly
awesome.
That will be this quarter. That's coming in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. How you to begin. That's awesome. Cool. Okay. So just thinking about what else we wanted to cover here. Anything else around Cloud 2.0 that you want to hit in terms of, I mean, we established timing, anything else around features or anything?
I think just the one thing that I will say about all of this, whether it's Cloud or Orion, and we said before, but it bears repeating, is just that all of this came from collecting multiple years of user feedback. And a lot of our users, especially those that have been around for many years, have heard us like, we're going to get to that, but it's going to require some really deep thought. And there were just a few trains of thought that all led to the same places. And once we realized that, that's where a lot of this has emerged from. And so I think a lot of, future users, of course, but a lot of our current users are going to see the solutions to a lot of the friction points that they've identified in this new world. And that includes cloud, how permissions are set up, the login experience, all of that good stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And one thing I did want to ask about too was ways we're thinking about supporting our community. This is like the ultimate example, I think, of supporting our community is listening, taking feedback, and then creating something that we think they can use. Like, what other ways are we thinking about continuing to support our community?
I really like how you just put that. First of all, the product is no good if it's not useful to anybody, and the community is the best possible way that we have to discover really fast and really honestly, did we do a good job here? Or did we really screw this up? And fortunately, I think we have not screwed up much. When things happen, they tend to deliver enormous value to folks. It's one of the reasons, we need to use our own product too. We can't just, guess. And that's where our sort of Prefect runs on Prefect slogan comes from. But our community has gotten to a point, I can't believe I'm saying this, right? But the discourse is a good example of this. The community has gotten to a point where it is overflowing the constructs that we built to ensure it's like healthy and positive growth.
Would you say then that discourse is Slack overflow?
I thought that's my job to make these horrible bugs. Yes, and I will tweet that later. Yes, that's so stupid. Yes, discourse is our Slack overflow, but it is true. There are so many messages going back and forth in our Slack. I think one of the best things we can say about our Slack is we recently had a candidate who came in for a job at Prefect. By the way, talk about a community. We now have multiple hundreds of applicants for every single job opening at Prefect. And so if you'd like to be one of those applicants, check out our boards. Like, we're looking for amazing people all around. But one of those applicants shared with us that the reason they applied for a role at Prefect is because of the extreme variety of what they describe as interesting problems that people are asking about. Like, if we have a framework that can be applied to such an incredible variety of things, there must be something cool here. And so in as much as Slack has become this incredible place to exchange that information, because of the volume of it, it disappears. It vanishes. And so discourse is a way to create a knowledge base that's complementary to Slack. It's for a different purpose than Slack. We have other things that we're doing, especially on the commercial side as well, to make sure that we have this knowledge base for our enterprise users and such. But Reuter, maybe we turn it around on you for a second. Why don't you talk about some of your efforts to ensure that there's this continued positive growth of the community, even if it can't only be in Slack form?
Well, it was funny you were saying that, and I was thinking. So I think both Chris and I are thinking a lot about Chris White and Chris Reuter are thinking a lot about our community. I think from a programmatic perspective is how I'm thinking we can really positively impact our community. So we're looking at things like potentially an ambassador program type of thing. We're looking at some other like giveaway type of programs. We're always looking at designing swag, and would love to have a community competition around swag. That's an idea we've been tossing around. So a lot of different ideas for just engaging our community and encouraging our community, you guys out there, to interact with each other. So that's how I'm thinking about it, is from a programmatic perspective. And then I think Chris is thinking about it from how do we support the community from a technical perspective and make sure that they are successful.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay, we have 1 minute left. I guess I'm just going to close with how's it going with growing the company, right? We're just talking about the community. I love coming back to this question. I know all three of us here are passionate about it. But just Jeremiah, how's it going? And you talked about hundreds of applicants. I've experienced that as well. We had one role that we're hiring for on my team with 680 applicants. It's just it's an overwhelming kind of a thing. But I guess
that should not discourage you from applying. Anyone?
Yes, no, yeah. Do not be discouraged from applying. We would love to have you apply and talk with you. But Jeremiah, how's it going with growing the company in general?
I mean, it's amazing. You just said it, right? But the key thing is, and I think I try to speak with every single candidate for every single role here at Prefect, because in as much as I want to welcome someone to the company, I want to issue them a challenge as well. And forgive me, my team, you've all heard me say this so many times, but we have this really awesome culture that we're really proud of, and that has enabled us to do really amazing things in concert with our users and our customers and our community. We don't take it for granted. It requires a proactive engagement way beyond what we do to create work product and to create, the normal obligations and responsibilities of our role. We're trying to do something more, and our company is nothing more than the sort of compounded sum of all the people in it. And so there's a mutual obligation set there, from the company to the team building it, and from the team back to the company culture that becomes that operating system and allows us to operate in this really, really interesting way. We have such a focus on allowing people to be autonomous and have agency in their roles, but operating with extremely positive, supportive structure. Chris has been really talking a lot about making sure that we have alignment as the key enabler of those things that I think in a different company would be like a contradiction in terms. How can you have both of these things? And we've worked very hard to create a culture where that is possible. And so, funny enough, and to answer your question about how's growth going, the answer is, as long as we continue to uphold this idea and invite all of our new colleagues and the growth of the company and the growth of our customers and the growth of our users and growth of our community to participate in that positive flywheel, then it goes amazingly well, because it drives, it's just correlated with all of the classic positive outcomes that I think companies waste, frankly, a lot of time measuring, productivity and all this other stuff. Like we're committed to this. We have our craft. We're very good at it. We've created a world in which we can excel at it and deliver it to customers and users in a way that delivers massive value to them. And to have that opportunity and to forward that opportunity is like the most important thing we could do. And the growth of that opportunity is exactly correlated to the growth and success of the company. So that's been our focus. I mean, Chris, you probably thought it was Chris White, I thought it was a joke when we started doing, management and leadership training when we had 10 employees once upon a time 3 years ago. But the foundations, the positive foundations, not bureaucracy, not garbage. I hate that stuff. But those positive foundations, they echo today in a really concrete way. And I know Chris White is going to have a lot to talk about on this front, and like how you tie it to like really positive engineering standards. Forget company standards. Let's talk just about our engineering organization and the standards there. It's remarkable. I don't have enough good things to say. So how's it going? Really, 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 really amazing. And I think it's because we've all made a commitment to a thing that we all care about a lot, which in a correlated fashion enables everything else we're talking about.
Chris, any thoughts on I think growth of the company, particularly as Jeremiah just said, from an engineer's perspective?
Yeah, so we're really hitting our stride in engineering right now, I think, and finding out the best ways that we can all work together full stack. And so we're having a lot of fun. We had 2 new engineers join this week, by the way. Shout out to Andrew and Peter. And we have more joining in the coming weeks. And we also have a lot of open roles, so we're growing quite fast. But we are spending a lot of time maturing our tech handbook, which has a lot of those standards that are just really fleshed out. And we're going to be talking a lot more in the coming weeks too about like how exactly does this translate to the way that we work with each other. But I can definitely tell you that everyone here is having a lot of fun. And so that's really, big part of what matters.
I agree. Any closing thoughts from you guys?
Just excited to get this 2.0 release out. That's all we're focused on right now from a product standpoint. Let's get this thing in the world. Let's make it amazing. And let's make sure our customers love it.
Awesome. All right, guys. Happy engineering. We'll see you in Slack and in Discourse. See you guys.
Yes.